What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the other day, a report was published online with serious allegations against Nintendo of America and a contract company called Ashton Carter. And now it's gotten to the point where Doug Bowser himself has responded. We'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a game that appears to be heading into Game Pass. This one in particular is pretty interesting because it debuted on PlayStation. And we're also going to be talking about the Snitch, who's at it again, this time hinting towards what could be a big game reveal, maybe for Gamescom. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Soul Hackers 2. It's out next week, and we should be seeing reviews go live here, I would think early next week, but could happen at any time. And in fact, we have our first review from Famitsu. We can see this posted up, where it is currently sitting at a 38 of 40. It got a 9, a 9, a 10, and a 10. And if we compare this to other Atlas games, it's only 1 point behind Persona 5. It's actually 1 point ahead of Persona 5 Royal, which is kind of strange because Persona 5 Royal is Persona 5, just, with more. Either way, though, that's still a very good score for Soul Hackers 2, putting it even 2 points above Shin Megami Tensei 5. They did point out that the overall length for the game is about 40 hours. Go up to 60 hours if you want to complete all the different challenges. They had a few things talking about some of the different characters, nothing too spoiler related here. And they did talk about the UI itself being stylish, also conveys complicated information easily. The fun of building demon stacks makes you forget about the main storyline, and wiping out enemies with the Sabbath is a great feeling. So, it looks like Soul Hackers 2 is lining up to be a pretty good release for next week. My only problem is, I'm playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That's sucking up a lot of my time, and I'm starting to fall behind a bit here with releases like we had Roller Drone come out that I jumped in a bit. It's pretty fun. And then we had like Cult of the Lamb. That's another one I want to play, but I am interested in Soul Hackers 2, so maybe I'll check that one out next week when it releases. Also, we do have Gotham Knights set to release here in a couple of months, that being in October, and in fact, it has now gone gold. We can see this posted up where they say the whole Gotham Knights team is proud to announce that we're officially gold. See you in October. And there are people who every time they post gameplay of this game, right, Gotham Knights, because they've detailed several of the characters, some of the story elements. They've also gone over upgrading, and people have seemingly been calling for it to maybe get delayed further so it can go through some polishing. It's coming out. That seems uncommon now, right? Where everything's just getting delayed. Gotham Knights was already delayed before, so I think it's coming out. That's it, right? It's going gold. It seems like they're set up for this October release. Whether you like what you've seen so far or not, I will say some of the gameplay looks a bit rough with the different animations, some of the dialogue. It'll be interesting when it does release in October. I'm gonna check it out just to see. It's the next Batman game, and at least some of the story elements is interesting, but we'll see how it goes when it releases. Oh, and next week we do have Gamescom opening night live, and Jeff Keighley's been dropping some information here and there as to some of the titles we can expect, and we can see this posted up, where he says, don't miss an exclusive new look at Hogwarts Legacy during Gamescom opening night live next Tuesday, August 23rd. Kind of makes sense why they told us that Hogwarts Legacy was delayed now into next year, because it would have been a strange thing going into Gamescom thinking we might get a release date reveal when they show it to us and they're like, oh yeah, it's not coming out till February or something. So I think that was a good idea to get that out of the way now. And this is also kind of setting up some of my expectations for Gamescom opening night live. I think we are going to see more than half the titles of games we already know about and just get better looks at the gameplay or things like that. So I think it's going to be a fun show. We're going to see video games. That'd be cool. But I don't know if it's necessarily going to blow you away like a big E3 presentation or something. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the allegations that Nintendo of America and Ashton Carter are currently facing. These were put out there in a report from Kotaku with 10 different sources, contractors, going over their experiences over what seemed like the last decade or so at Nintendo of America. We're going to take a look here. This is Nintendo Everything, who did a pretty good job going over the different points and attempting to summarize them, as the original article was kind of all over the place in terms of the time periods these things took place and everything. So we'll take a look here. I'll also link to Kotaku, the original source, down below in the description. But we can see this says Nintendo of America testers detail experiences they've had with sexual harassment at the company. Now, this takes place with two different companies, Nintendo of America, and then the contracting company, that being, I think they were Aerotech before, and then they restructured, now called Ashton Carter. And there are a lot of different things that they've gone over here. Like I said, you're gonna wanna go through this for yourself. But several employees had created a group chat on Nintendo's Microsoft Teams server called The Laughing Zone, and a male translator posted inappropriate screenshots related to Pokemon, specifically Vaporeon, and Genshin Impact while talking about minors specifically from that game. The tester reported the incident, but was warned to be less outspoken and that the only repercussion the translator faced was being assigned sexual harassment training. It was noted that the translator was a full-time Nintendo employee. One contractor was previously fired for making comments about the color of the tester's underwear, but the translator, who made the sexual comments in group chat, was a full-time Nintendo employee, so a third-party contract company couldn't terminate his employment. This is a big thing, is you're going to see a lot when going through these reports, you're going to see a lot of interactions between contractors and full-time Nintendo employees, and the contract company really can't do much with the Nintendo employees since that's up to Nintendo. And they also go over some of the power dynamics between a full-time Nintendo employee that's referred to as a red badge versus the contractor, where getting in with the red badges would then give you the opportunity of moving up and into the company. And that's what a lot of the contractors will look to do, right? Is start out as a contractor, work their way up to be full-time employees from Nintendo, and this got to the point where you would maybe accompany a red badge as their date, for example, to the Christmas party to try to work the office or corporate politics. There's also a lot of allegations around pay disparity between the men and women there, to where one woman said that they stayed at the same base wage for 6 years, so she got a higher offer elsewhere and had to threaten to leave to have their wage moved up. Now, they also mentioned that female contractors faced issues with trying to advance in the company, and one tester that worked on Zelda Breath of the Wild said he had better chances being converted to full-time as a male. Now, some of them were called out by name, like Eric Bush, who's another prolific employee who made inappropriate comments in a Seattle gala, for which Nintendo was a sponsor, is still employed at Nintendo as a product testing manager. It's also mentioned the one former tester says product testing was sometimes like a frat house, and there was also one particular situation where one former contractor claimed a more senior tester stalked her between July 2011 and February 2012, but because the man was friends with the right people, she didn't feel she could flag the stalking to her contracting company. After this report did get published, Doug Bowser did send out an internal statement where he says, "We have strict policies designed to protect our employees and associates from inappropriate conduct and expect full compliance with these policies by all who work for or with us. We have and will always investigate any allegations we become aware of, and we are actively investigating these most recent claims. Please remember that our HR teams are here to support you if you have experienced, witnessed, or have witnessed anything concerning such behavior that is contrary to our standards of conduct, employee handbook, or company values. Please immediately contact your HR business partner." Seeing the gaming industry kind of go down this path, as, I mean, there's a lot of corporations, thousands of people employed, and you get a lot of stories like this out from, we've seen it from Insomniac, Sony, we've seen it from Ubisoft, obviously from Activision. By the way, the Activision thing, I feel like people saw that and now they're seeing like these reports from Nintendo America and they're like, well, they're not as bad as Activision stuff. So they're kind of like conditioned to think that the Activision thing was normal, which it obviously wasn't. So they kind of look at this and dismiss it a bit when these are serious things that should be investigated by Nintendo, to the point where Doug Bowser is indeed responding internally. And I do see people wonder, well, what can they do? Because when you're on the outside looking in, some will say don't buy their products anymore, but it's like, well, these are mostly bad actors that are being called out and you would assume would be dealt with in some way. But in this case, it's kind of like, hey, Nintendo needs to get this figured out with their Nintendo of America branch. And obviously this contracting company, because there's just a very strange relationship, it sounds like, over at Nintendo of America between these contractors and these full-time employees. So it does appear that there was a lot of investigating going on right now from the media when it comes to Nintendo of America, as this appears to be a report that's been in the making for a while. And I keep seeing more and more of these reports pop up from employees with these complaints towards Nintendo doing different things. So it does appear that more and more stuff is getting out there. Here's hoping Nintendo can get a lot of this stuff sorted out and worked out, but we'll see if anything else comes up in the future. Next up, let's talk about a game that's kind of getting teased right now as being set to go into Game Pass for PC. We can see this posted up over on Twitter from PC Game Pass. Sometimes we just like a good landscape picture, and they updated their profile picture with what looks like some mountains, and you can see kind of the overcast sky there, and people kind of looked at it and said, okay, that's interesting. What is this for? Because you figure this would just be some sort of tease towards maybe the next game. As the Game Pass accounts like to do this. They'll send out like, oh, look at this email, and they redact a bunch of stuff, and people try to figure it out, right? In this case, it took about 5 minutes for people to figure this out after realizing, wait, those are landscapes from Death Stranding. Even Tom Warren posted like immediately with enhance. Oh yeah, look, there's there's Sam Porter Bridges in front of the mountain, the landscape you have there. So this appears to be saying that Death Stranding is going into Game Pass, but it would specifically be Game Pass for PC. And you might be wondering, why is that? Well, with the console version on PlayStation, obviously, PlayStation published it. They wanted the Hideo Kojima game as a console exclusive for their platform to help sell systems and add some variety to their overall game lineup. But when it went to PC, 505 Games published it. Because remember, Hideo Kojima Productions, that's an independent studio. Yes, they are using the Decima engine, but after what 505 Games was able to do, pushing it to things like the Epic Games Store and all of that, it seemed to work out because they got quite a few sales from the PC side. So now it could be, all right, we've sold a lot of copies. There's like over 5 million copies. Let's now take the Game Pass check, right? It'll go to Hideo Kojima and his Kojima Productions, who's also working on an Xbox game now. But that's kind of the way it would work. It wouldn't go into Xbox. It would go into PC Game Pass. But still, going to Game Pass in general, after what Sony has said in those different filings in Brazil with the whole Activision deal, that's something that they're concerned about. These full-price games on PlayStation going to Game Pass as something you just download as part of the subscription. So while it's not on the Xbox, I mean, yeah, technically it's going into Game Pass just on PC. So I guess keep an eye out for this announcement, as the fact they're changing their icon or their profile picture kind of tells me it's happening soon. Next up, let's talk about Toys for Bob and how it looks like they're preparing to announce a new game. Now, Toys for Bob, we know, has done like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, those really good remakes of those titles, but then they got moved to what basically everyone at Activision got moved to, Call of Duty, making sure that game ships in time for the holiday because that's the big game from Activision. It makes all of the money, so all the studios are going to work on that, right? Well, it now looks like Toys for Bob is prepping something else. We can see this posted up on Twitter where they say, thanks for playing along. How many did you guess correctly? You know, it's pretty convenient. We have more wall space to cover. If we look all the way at the bottom, number 18, just a couple of question marks, that being after their most latest Crash game, Crash 4, It's About Time. So there's a few possibilities here. Obviously, it could be a brand new Spyro game, right? They just did a brand new Crash game. Sure, maybe we get a new Spyro game. Or it could be that Wampa League thing that's been rumored for a little while. I know Liam Robertson has talked about this a couple of times, even did an entire thread detailing what it was, which sounds like just a multiplayer Crash Bandicoot collectathon game, which that could be kind of interesting, a different experience at least for that. So that's kind of what I'm gravitating towards, because there's been concept art that's gotten out there and all of this. And I mean, let's face it, a multiplayer Crash Bandicoot game that could have live service implications seems to fit in with what Activision would want anyway. So I'm curious when this would get announced, because the Wampa League thing's been rumored for what feels like years now. Hey, I mean, Gamescom is coming up, so that might be a good spot for it. We'll see. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about yet another tease. This from the Snitch, who has been basically dead on 100% the whole way so far. As I mentioned, there's some speculation, some theories as to how they are so correct that kind of has to do with trailers being uploaded to YouTube that the public can't see just yet, but they can. Anyway, they posted this up on Twitter. You can see it here, just an image, and people immediately thought, oh, Destiny. There's something new with Destiny. Well, Not quite. A little more searching, people realized, wait, this looks like Dune? Is there a new Dune game coming out? Well, there has actually been one that's been reported on from Funcom. This was a couple of months ago, where the devs behind Conan Exiles, they've announced a new Dune game that could scratch all the itches that sci-fi nerds have had for decades. Now, they say this is their most ambitious project yet. It's to be a next-gen open-world multiplayer game, and yeah, you can expect live service stuff in there, obviously, but it is being built in Unreal Engine for PC and consoles. I also noticed that in the replies to Roberto Serrano, who guessed really Dune and Funcom and Unreal Engine 5, the Snitch just says no, which Dune has been like the big guess here by a lot of people. I also noticed that the character has some hair edited onto them, sort of Photoshop there, so I don't know, maybe the Snitch found the image for Dune, thought it looked close enough to what they were trying to get at, a little bit of editing, and there we have it. Just let me know your best guess here as to what exactly the Snitch is getting at, and if you think it's something that'll show up at Gamescom next week. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, which of these September game releases are you most excited for? Splatoon 3, 53%, the runaway here. And then Last of Us Part 1 at 20%, and Valkyrie Elysium at 14%. I am interested in Valkyrie Elysium, see how that one turns out there. I did throw NBA 2K23 and just have some sort of sports game there since we're seeing more and more of them released in the next 2 months. 5%. It's about what I expected here. But yeah, I guess Splatoon 3 is like the big game for September that everyone's looking forward to. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Junk saying, if Sony makes their own launcher, then they can't make the same mistakes that Epic did. May not be an expert in programming, but 2 years to make a shopping cart feature is kind of pathetic. They need to launch it with all the necessary features day one. Yeah, that was weird, right? It took so long for Epic Games Store just to get a shopping cart. They really relied on the idea of just giving games away for free to get you to download the shop, right? I don't think Sony's going to do that. They'd rather rely on the strength of their intellectual properties to pull you in and, yeah, linking your PSN account or creating one and unlocking trophies and digital collectibles and these different things. I feel like they'll have a shopping cart. In fact, I think they're going to show up with at least a competent shopping experience. It seems like they've been developing this launcher for a couple of years now based on some of the job listings. So that's my hope, is that they show up with a launcher that's at least decent and has a shopping cart. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was a current situation around Nintendo of America and Ashton Carter with the allegations and Doug Bowser's response. Also, what about the possibility of Death Stranding heading into Game Pass for PC? And then what do you think the Snitch is currently hinting at? Is it something we're going to see next week at Gamescom? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.